Welcome to Beyond Rent, the property management podcast brought to you by Rent Manager. Each episode, we sit down with an expert to talk industry updates, tech solutions, and top tips for those in the property management space. And now, let's get to the conversation and go Beyond Rent.
Hey everyone, and welcome to Beyond Rent. There is always so much going on in our industry. It can be really hard to keep up. So we've invited Jason from DoorGrow to join us today as we're going to talk about what's going on in our industry and really the perspective that we all should share if we're going to continue to overcome challenges and thrive in our industry. Jason, welcome to Beyond Rent.
Joe, great to be here. I appreciate it.
Yeah, really appreciate you taking some time out of your busy day. We're recording on a Friday. I don't know what day this will go live, but we're recording on a Friday. So we're coming to the end of our week. And I think, when I think end of the week, I start kind of wrapping things up in my head. Where am I at? Where am I going next week? And I love zooming out and kind of looking at our industry from a higher level to see what's really going on. And I know you have a lot to share. But before we get into that, let's get to know you a little bit better. Go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us what you're all about.
Man, where do I start? So, my name's Jason Hull, and I am the CEO and founder of DoorGrow. And basically what we do is we coach and consult property management companies. We're the world leaders at this, and we have more case studies and testimonials than anything else out there. And I really my personal why or mission in life is to inspire others to love true principles. And so what that means is I love figuring out what works and sharing it with other people. I would do that for free, for fun. I'm doing that for free, for fun right now. And I built DoorGrow to feed my addiction to learning and being able to afford to work with some of the best coaches and mentors that exist out there, and to be able to turn around and be able to share that with other people. And so it's just fun. So
yeah, that's really a beautiful statement to think about, this idea of loving true principles, right? Finding out what works, diving into it, going really hardcore on the things that really help a business grow. If you're going to get better at anything in life, you typically need somebody to walk alongside you to help show you the right way, maybe point out some blind spots and so forth that you're dealing with. So super excited to hear all of your insights and intuition and experience in this industry. So let's jump right in. Let's really kind of dive into what we want to talk about today. When you think about the property management industry, and as it relates to professional property management companies, what's kind of your current perspective on what's happening as far as, are there enough of them out there? What's the growth of professional property management companies? What are you seeing?
Well, this is interesting because I don't know if you've been geeking out on using AI like ChatGPT or anything like everybody else has, right? But I'm really geeking out on I love tech. And I'm really geeking out on Grok 3 that came out. Like, it's like next level. It's pretty brilliant, especially the deep search. So I just was doing deep search on the industry, and it's like getting a month of research in like seconds. It's pretty brilliant. So I was asking it about single family residential rentals and the rental industry. And what it came back with, it says that it's probably about a 60-40 split right now. About 40% use a professional manager in the single family residential sort of space, and about 60% available potential market share of people that are self-managing. So there's no scarcity in the industry right now. It has been growing. It's said that there's about 6,000 new property management companies created every year net, because I'm sure there's some that are closing, failing. So it's growing by about 6,000 a year. And so that was interesting to me as well. So those are some of the things that I've noticed, is that there's a lot of people getting into property management, a lot of new businesses starting, and they make a lot of mistakes when getting starting. There's kind of some industry common sort of mistakes. They all do the same stuff. They make a lot of significant mistakes when getting started. And then there's, and those are things that we help people with at DoorGrow as well. We do help startups, or we help people clean up all the mistakes that they've made. We're kind of like bar rescue for property managers. And so we rehab a lot of businesses, and we have a program just for that called the Rapid Revamp. Like it's really rapid. It's a 90-day program. We spend 2 weeks on 6 major leaks that exist in their front end product, basically their business, branding, website, sales pitch, pricing, et cetera. Right. So I'm noticing there's a lot of growth, and when real estate kind of has a downturn, property management always tends to start to become a focus. There's a lot of realtors, real estate people getting into property management. And what else am I noticing in the industry? I'm noticing there's always consistently more tech, and right now we're in the middle of an AI revolution. AI is everywhere. Everyone's trying to just throw AI into everything. AI is in every software I use now. They're like, here's an AI tool that will like summarize this, right? AI is all over the place. And so I'm noticing some really cool trends with vendors starting to adopt AI, and some new players coming into the marketplace on the vendor side that are like AI maintenance coordination and some of these things that if some of the people that have been really successful in these spaces don't adapt quickly, these new companies are going to eat their lunch.
Yeah. So a lot to unpack there and some really interesting stats. That 60-40 split, if we start there, in any industry, there's always this sense of like there's competition, there's a lot going on. I need to protect my territory. But that 60-40 split tells me that really is not the case at all. There's so much opportunity out there. The real opportunity is convincing owners, investors out there that are trying to do this on their own that they actually need a professional property management company to walk alongside them and provide those services. That there is no scarcity in the market.
There's false scarcity, and it's powerful and it's strong. And the false scarcity is, I believe, created by marketers in this industry. So I'm not supposed to talk about competitors or like anything bad, but in general, what I want to say is there's this false scarcity because everybody's fighting in the red bloody water where all the other sharks are over the fewest fish, and they're the worst fish. So you have to understand, like if you go on trends.google.com and search for property management and you limit it to just the United States, for example, and you backdate it to when Google first started tracking data that's in Google Trends, 2004. And you look to the present, you'll see property management is a search term spikes every summer and goes down every winter. But what you will notice is that it hasn't grown since 2004. Search volume is about the same on Google Trends. You can put in you can put in AI, for example, to compete with it, and you'll see it like just spike, right, in recent years. But property management in search volume hasn't really increased. What has increased is competition in that space dramatically. This is where everybody's trying to get business. It's SEO, pay-per-click, content marketing, social media marketing, or pay-per-lead services. And so the challenge there is that's all internet marketing. The best business are not on the internet looking for a property manager. That's the worst. They're at the end of the sales cycle. So if we look at there's 60% available market share to be created. There's tons of business. That's the blue ocean. The first big filter, everyone's major competitor really is just awareness. That's the first big hurdle. So if we take awareness, those that are aware of property management, that's the first big hurdle. The next big hurdle of those that are aware is perception. Most have a negative perception of the industry. And so they are not willing to go past that stage. And then after the perception sort of challenge, so that's really our two biggest challenges in the industry are awareness and the negative perception that exists. And we can talk about why that exists in a second, but the after perception, then usually word of mouth captures the best stuff that's left over. And then I'm not supposed to say bad language on this. So the terrible scraps that fall off of the word of mouth table, that's left over, that those are the people searching on the internet. And at that point, you're now a commodity. They're looking for the cheapest price. And this is a psychological profile. There's 3 types of psychological buyers. I call them cheapos, normals, and premiums. At that stage, the cheapos are what are left over. The cheapos have the highest operational costs for you to manage. So, and they're the most price sensitive. So price sensitivity is at a max by the end of this sales cycle. So the people searching on the internet that you can find through marketing channels are usually the worst. They're the worst owners. They're the most price sensitive. They're commodity. They think you're a commodity. They're price shopping. And so it creates this false scarcity and also creates this artificial race to the bottom in terms of price because they're very price sensitive. And so they're complaining about your price and your fees and trying to get the lowest rate. Whereas if you can go out into the blue ocean, there's tons of available business, way less price sensitivity. And I guarantee that the majority of those 60% don't love managing rental properties. It's not a hard sell. Like, who does your maintenance coordination? Me. Who does your leasing? Me. Do you like that stuff? They'll laugh at you usually. Well, yeah, no, but I have to do this. Why? Because most property managers suck is probably what the feedback you get. And when I ask property managers, I can have a room of property managers at our conference, like DoorGrow Live or something, which is coming up in May, shameless plug. But if I can have a room of property managers, and I can say, by show of hands, how many of you believe most of your competitors suck? Everybody's hands go up. And then I usually joke, but not yours, right? And they all laugh, right? So the challenge is, if we spend a whole bunch of money on marketing to go try and get business, and they're the worst clients that have the highest operational costs and are the most needy and are always asking us questions and calling us all the time, and their properties are the lowest rent and they're the most difficult to deal with, and we have the most difficult tenants, then we don't have money to reinvest back into the business, and we're investing it poorly into things that aren't really giving us a great return. This is where customer service drops dramatically. And so the majority of the industry falls prey to what I call the cycle of suck. This is my little framework that sums up really the industry in aggregate, the challenge of the industry in aggregate. But this is the challenge in every business. If you take on bad clients, it leads to having bad properties. Even if the property's newly remade, remodeled, new construction, whatever. If the owner's bad, the property becomes bad for you and basically become kind of a crap shield for a slumlord, right? And then if the property's bad, the tenant, even if you do all the tenant screening in the world, they're going to be frustrated. They're going to be upset. They're going to be like annoyed. So they're not happy. So now you have bad tenants. And so if you have unhappy and bad owners, bad properties, and unhappy or bad tenants, then you're going to have a bad reputation. And that sums up the industry. And guess what? The cycle continues. You have a bad reputation and bad reviews. You're going to attract more of the worst clients. And so what I really would love everyone in the industry to do right now is fire all of your worst clients, because I guarantee your worst properties and your worst clients right now in your property management business, you're not making money on them. The operational cost outweighs the margin that you have. You're losing money on some of the properties in your portfolio if you're caught in the cycle of suck. And so just by firing those, you would have way more bandwidth and probably more money. And so, but a lot of businesses, they are letting the best properties and best owners subsidize the garbage ones in their portfolio. And they just say, it's a wash, and they just tolerate it. And they have really unhealthy businesses. And so that's some of the stuff we coach clients on, is just how to clean up that and how to attract better owners and how to go back out into the blue ocean and get better clients at a higher price point more easily. So
yeah, it is really interesting, because when I talk to property management companies that are out there, they've been out there, let's say 5+ years, at least 5 years. They say a lot of similar things to what you're saying. They're like, yeah, the first 5 years, I took on any and all clients that I could, any owner I could. I had, and they always say, I had to. I just had to. I didn't have a choice. But now that I'm a little more mature, now that I've built my business a little more, I can be more selective, and I can only take on certain property owners, certain types of properties, and they start honing their business. Why do they wait so long to do that? Because it seems to me like, not that this is obvious, and I understand we're all trying to grow our businesses, but why does it take them so long to kind of learn the things that you're saying?
Well, one, it comes down to when you're first starting out, there's a lot you don't know. They make a lot of mistakes. They have bad branding. They have a bad website. They have bad reputation challenges. They have bad pitch. They have bad pricing. They're doing what everyone else is doing. And so then they duplicate what everyone else is doing. They wonder why it's so hard. And it really comes down to having bad strategy, because you don't need to spend any money on marketing to grow your property management business. In fact, I usually have to talk people down from spending any money so that they can go spend that time focus on better stuff. Because if you're buying the coldest, worst leads on the internet and dealing with those owners, they're cold leads, and it takes more time to nurture them. It actually takes more time and more money. So it takes less time and maybe $0 if you're functioning as the BDM or the salesperson as a business owner. And it actually takes you less time and you can grow faster. But if you're dealing with cold leads, the challenge is there's a longer sales cycle. And cold leads have like a 10% or worse close rate typically. Whereas word of mouth, everybody listening knows they love word of mouth. Like it's like a 90% close rate. You just don't have bad breath and you get the deal. Right? It's like, it's a slam dunk. You could be terrible at sales. You get a word of mouth referral and they will still work with you because the trust level is high. And so they don't realize it, but they have all these trust leaks that exist in the hose that come after the lead generation. So they're turning on the hose full blast. We need more leads, more leads, more leads. We just need more leads. I call that the leads myth. Most companies under 200 doors believe the leads myth. They think all leads are basically the same, which is not even close, right? Like there's so many ways we can compare this, right? Cold leads versus warm leads, 10% versus 90% close rate, not equal. Then we can also take a look at a concept I teach called the 4 Ds to revenue, right? The 4 Ds are deals, doors, duration, and dollars. These are 4 metrics when multiplied equal your gross revenue in your business. So let's take an accidental investor, right? They couldn't sell the property. They're like the worst of this in a lot of situations. 1 deal ever. That's all you're going to get from them. 1 door, 1 year duration. And they're a cheapo, right? On dollars. So the lifetime value of that client is really low, and it's harder to get them on usually. And it's harder to put up with them. They're super emotional about the property. They want it to be a perfect time capsule for a year while a tenant's in it. They want, grandma planted the flower bed and it needs to be perfect and whatever, right? And so contrast that with a more seasoned investor, for example. They're going to do 10 deals over the life of being in business with you, maybe. They have 10 doors already. They're a 10-year buy and hold investor. They are more of a premium buyer or a normal buyer. And so they're willing to spend even more money with you, right? You're not just going to make 10 times more off of that person, lifetime value, maybe 100, maybe even more, right? 1,000 times. It could be really significant. Multiplication matters, right? Like if any of these numbers are a 0, you make $0, right? In your business, right? So that's how significant these numbers are. And so not all leads are equal. And not all leads should be followed up the same way, and not all leads should be hunted the same way, and not all leads should be you should spend money on to get them. And there's several other strategies. Blue ocean, 4 Ds to revenue, cycle of suck. As you start to stack all of this, your business can grow faster and faster and faster. Imagine if you could start your business knowing all of these different frameworks and not make dumb choices. You would be able to grow way faster, a lot more easily. I can get some of my clients, I get them from 0 to 100 doors in 6 months, and they have healthy portfolios. So, but what normally happens is we want to make all the mistakes ourselves because we're an entrepreneur. We're going to watch 1 million YouTube videos, read all the silly books. Like we're going to try so hard to figure it out. And we want to make every mistake ourselves until we realize, man, this is really painful. And then we do learn. But you can collapse a decade of learning down into a year if you just have the right path. And I've made that mistake. Like I've done the decade of making mistakes. Like DoorGrow was built on thousands of mistakes, right? When I started getting mentors, coaches, it really helped me collapse time significantly. And so that's what I want to bring to clients and help clients with. But when people fire their first client, they're always like, man, I wish I had done that sooner. I should have done that sooner. They always wait too long. And that's a hallmark of a seasoned property manager. They finally fire somebody. They realize they're tolerating too much, and then they start to get a little pickier, and they grow from there.
Yeah, and I think I think there's, again, a lot in there. I think there's a little bit of a reality, and correct me if I'm wrong here, that you talked about that accidental investor. I think some of our property management companies are accidental property management companies as well. So they kind of fall into this trap of thinking, well, these accidental investors that have this extra property, they're just like me, and they kind of found themselves in this situation, and I can help them. I can be the one that provides this unique service for them, instead of just being absolutely intentional about what they're actually trying to achieve from the very, very beginning. And I love that idea of like making mistakes. I'm going to tell you, it is so much human nature to say, I'm going to do it my way. I'm going to make the mistake myself before I learn. We all do it. If you have kids, you probably have experienced your kids doing the same thing. And it's like, why are we built that way? Why do we have to experience it ourselves instead of just trusting someone? And I also love how you talk about doing things just different. In any market, in any industry, if you do the same thing as your competitors, you're probably going to end up with the same results as your competitors, but probably even more watered down because now you're another competitor doing the same thing, competing for the same customers. You have to be unique. And if you're going to be unique, you have to kind of break away from the mob mentality that sometimes exists within industries. And I would say in our industry, we see that a lot of followers, instead of people saying, well, what actually makes sense here? How can I do it differently to capture more of the market?
Well, there's this kind of a hidden problem here, right? The hidden problem is this. When people, I hear this all the time. Like, why did you start your property management business? They always say, well, I was an investor and I tried using managers and they all sucked. And so I started one, and like, right. And so this is why a lot of people start. But the hidden problem is when they start, they're looking at all the biggest companies and all their competitors. So, and competing against your biggest competitors in your market is kind of like David versus Goliath. We all know the story, right? David versus Goliath. What did David not do? David didn't do what Goliath was doing. But everybody comes in as dumb David instead of smart David, and I'm going to do SEO, pay-per-click. I'm going to put on the same sword, same armor, same helmet, same shield, and I'm going to go fight this guy who's like way bigger than me, and he's going to kick my butt. And they're spending like $3,000 to $5,000 a month minimum in advertising. They're maxing out their ad budgets. They can't afford, like they can't spend any more money to get any more business because there just isn't enough search volume out there. So they're maxing out their ad budgets. And then you're going to come in with your measly, maybe $1,000 a month or something, and pay a marketing firm and try and spend money to grow your business and compete with them. And you're going to lose. You're going to lose big time. And so this is why you can't look at the biggest companies. A lot of these big companies grew their businesses in an earlier time when pay-per-click worked really well, or in an early time when other strategies, internet marketing strategies, there was a lot less red bloody water, right? And so it's tempting to, well, they're big, they're doing this, I should try and do what they're doing. I just won't be able to do it as well. But David had a hack. He basically brought a gun to a sword fight. Like, he had superior tech. Like, his idea was fling this, and he was like, he knew how to aim that thing like a gunshot. He nailed that guy in the head, chopped his head off with his own sword, and the day was done, right? So I like to say that DoorGrow is that hack. Like, we're doing something very different than we're coaching our clients to do something very different than what the marketplace is telling them that they should do when they get their business started. And because it's hard in the beginning, every dollar counts much, much bigger, right? Once you get to 200 to 400 doors, that's where a lot of companies start to spend money on advertising, marketing. If you're trying to do that before then, it doesn't even make sense. It probably doesn't even make sense at 200 to 400 doors, but doing it early is one of the biggest mistakes or like worst moves they make. And then that's just turning on lead gen. They're not paying attention to all the leaks in the hose that come after that to try and water their business at the end of the yard that they could hopefully grow and pull fruit from, but they're ignoring all the leaks in the pipeline. And so they're putting so much time, energy, focus, cash, and effort, the 5 currencies they have to invest into this pipeline, and it's massively leaky. These bigger companies, pipelines are probably a little less leaky, but they also have bigger budgets and they can afford to lose money.
Yeah, I love that analogy of David versus Goliath, because You're absolutely right. I think people get the moral of that story completely wrong. It's not that David outworked, was stronger. Like, we all know that. Like, oh, David Small Goliath is huge, but it's the fact that he was smarter. He came in with a different approach that circumvented the strength of Goliath, right? He didn't bring a sword to a sword fight. He brought a different type of weapon. And our PMCs in this industry have to bring a different strategy and be smarter. It's not always about the level of effort either, right? It's about how you're implementing that strategy, how you're being smarter and maybe craftier than your competitors out there. So I love that analogy. I think that's so smart. So in your approach and what you're talking about, when we look at our industry and what's happening, and I love that you kind of talked to AI and doing some research there, we need PMCs that are thinking outside the box of what the industry is probably telling them, thinking outside the box of what their competitors are doing to find that 60% that are not doing Google searches for a property management company.
Yeah, I mean, the percentage searching are really small. There's a real small fraction of that 60%. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. What I love about the story of David and Goliath, like if you read that in the Bible, like David has crazy amounts of confidence. Like he did not doubt. He knew his skill. He's like, I'm going to take this guy. He was like, I don't need the armor. Like, he's like, I don't need that. This guy's going down. He had superior confidence. He believed in God. He knew God was on his side too, but he had confidence in his abilities, his God-given abilities. He had confidence. And so, if when we don't have confidence, we tend to make a lot of mistakes. We start making stupid decisions. We start doing things that we think might work. But when you understand why certain things work, then you will do those things. They make just more sense. And so confidence comes from like things making sense and understanding why things work or why they wouldn't work, rather than just trusting a marketer that says, hey, do this and you get more leads. You should understand, like, why would this work or why won't this work? They need to understand that. And what I find is, if the secret ingredient, I think, in any strategy for growing a business, especially in property management with this search volume issue, is that a lot of people try to go wide. They try to like direct mail or hit 1 million people on social media or whatever. Nobody cares about property management. Your clients do not care about property management. Property management is not what they want to buy from you. And you're trying to sell property management to people and nobody cares about it. Nobody wakes up in the morning and goes, I want to follow some property managers on social media today because I'm an investor. No. So property management is really a business of selling the destination to where they want to go. Property management is the vehicle to get them there. So the analogy I usually use is like, if you want to take a trip to Hawaii and you go to a travel agent, and this travel agent is like, where do you want to go? You're like, I want to go to Hawaii. I'm excited. I want to have the best vacation there ever. And they're like, cool. Let me tell you about the flights to Hawaii. Let me tell you all about we have got all these, let me tell you about this flight. We've got this flight package and this flight package. And let me tell, and they're like, oh, okay, but what about Hawaii? No. Like, we've got tenant screening and leasing and maintenance coordination. And like you're selling the flight. No, they don't care about the flight. And most property managers don't even go deep enough to figure out, why do they even have the rental property? Why are they in this? Why are they, what are their long-term goals? To figure out, oh, cool, do we have the right vehicle to help you get to Hawaii, right? No, like, so that's quick tip is don't sell property management. The other tip is don't go wide, go deep, right? There's a level of depth in finding out what their long-term goals are. There's a level of depth there. There's a level of depth in going out and having real conversations one-on-one with people, rather than trying to spray and pray and hope you get some leads, right? So here's the secret is this: doing unscalable actions creates a scalable business. Do the unscalable and your business will scale dramatically. It's what all the big companies are unwilling to do or aren't doing right now. It's like the networking, it's connecting, it's talking to people, it's calling property owners. It's like, all these different things. And then there's strategies and hacks to maximizing or 10xing the results most property managers get by trying these different strategies or outreach.
It's so interesting because it's counterculture almost, or counter wisdom that some people would say, that whole idea of doing things that are not scalable. Because you talked about technology earlier. We're all like talking about like how we use automation and tools to simplify this, eliminate effort here. And that's all very true. And that's, I'm sure you talk about that when you coach people, and we talk about that with our software. Like, that's all very true, but that's to eliminate all of the inefficiencies in our business. It's not actually to grow the business, right? So this idea of going against what a lot of, I guess, the mindset might be in the industry to do all these highly scalable things, and go out and shake some hands and find out where the investors are at and what their actual goals are. And that analogy of the travel agent is just so much fun, because you're right. They're hiring a property management company eventually because they don't want to worry about the property management side. They want to get to the long-term growth. Maybe they're building wealth. Maybe they actually just want to create opportunities for housing, whatever it is. Their actual vision goal of what they're doing is not, hey, how can you help me get leasing and screening done faster and easier? No, they want you to take care of that without them really being involved in that piece of it.
Well, business owners have deep goals. Like when I dig in and ask them questions, they're like, I want to be able to play golf. I want to be able to take time out and go on vacations. They're not talking about their business when I really go deep with them. Your clients are the same way. They might want to pay for their daughter's wedding someday. Might be why they have that rental property. They want to pay for their kids' education. Like, they have goals that are like far removed from maintenance coordination and leasing and rent collection, right? And I think we mentioned AI. I think also the cool thing about this AI revolution is it's going to put a premium on human interaction. Human interaction is going to become even more meaningful and even more significant, because it's costly. Human interaction costs us real time. It costs us life. And so when you're willing to invest human to human time with people, they're going to value that even more. It's going to be even more valuable with all the AI stuff going. Oh my gosh, you're a real person talking to me right now? Oh, that's amazing. Like, I thought everyone were robots now. Like, it's so great to finally meet a real human. It's been a while. Yeah.
And that's already started. I mean, you hear people talk about that all the time. If they call a company and a human answers, they get excited about it. Oh, I didn't have to deal with an AI bot to answer my question today. I got to interact with a human. People do get excited about it. So we can start now, right? We don't have to wait until AI takes over. We can start now focusing in those areas.
Yeah, and we have to be really careful in rolling out AI, because if people find out you tricked them, you lose all credibility. And the only thing they really want to buy from you, it's not property management. They want to buy trust. They want to buy peace of mind. They want to buy safety and security. And if you destroy trust by tricking them, and they're like, ah, man, I just figured out this is AI I was talking to this whole time. I thought we were friends. Yeah, that can really hurt trust.
And I think we're headed that way with a lot of the solutions that we're looking at. So, well, Jason, we're kind of coming to the end of our episode here, and there's been so much that you've shared with us. So I want to really kind of wrap things up with, you shared some tips. What should people out there in the industry, whether they just started or they've been doing this for a decade plus, what is your recommendation for like a next step so they can evaluate maybe where they're at? Maybe they've plateaued, maybe they're not growing, maybe they're actually shrinking, and they're asking themselves, like, how do I get ahead in this industry? What's the right next step for them?
That's a great question. This is my favorite question to ask. There's really two major problems. The major problem, usually up to 200 doors, is like, I need to grow. How do I get more money? How do I get more doors? They usually believe the leads myth. They think, I just need more leads, which is dangerous thinking, because marketers will love to give you more leads, right? And after that, usually they build the wrong team or in the wrong business, and they're miserable and they have a whole team. But if you have an entire team and you're still wearing a little bit of all the hats you don't enjoy wearing, you by default have the wrong team. Usually at this stage, 200 to 400 doors, especially, I call that the second sand trap. This is where people get caught up in what I call the process myth. I just need more KPIs. I just need more metrics. I just need to micromanage my team more and just squeeze more blood from that stone and just get them to behave better. It's impossible to outprocess a mediocre team. You'll die trying. It's impossible. But I've seen really mediocre process systems and businesses with amazing teams perform exceptionally well. So so we need a sorting question. So usually I just ask, what would lower your stress personally? Because everybody builds their business around the business and not taking care of themselves. This is where we make the biggest mistake and where we end up miserable in our own business. The goal of starting a business is to get more fulfillment, more freedom, more contribution, and more support. I call those the 4 reasons. If you're an entrepreneur, you want these 4 things. If you're not an entrepreneur, you want the 5th reason, which is safety and security. This is what makes us different. They would rather have safety and security. It's more important than freedom. That's why they work for you. Okay, that's why they hire you. They want peace of mind. They want safety and security. If you're an entrepreneur, you want these 4 reasons. You can make more and more money and have less fulfillment and less freedom. That's the default, actually. So the sorting question is this, is what would lower your stress personally as a business owner more right now? Would it be adding another 200 doors to your business? Which is not hard to do. If you're working with us, it's not hard to do. There's plenty of business out there. That's not that hard of a problem to solve. Or would it be getting better teams, systems, and support around you to lower your pressure and noise? What would lower your stress more right now? Generally, if they're in the early stage, they say, I need more money. Yeah, I need more doors. If they're in the later stage, it's, man, if I just had the systems and the processes better and the team better, that would be it. That's where we start them. We have different programs for each of those problems to solve. The more advanced one, we're getting into hiring systems. We're getting into people planning and process. I call it the super system. It's like the Voltron of systems. Like if you have these 3 systems really well installed in your business, you become what I call infinitely scalable. You can handle any level of growth. You can get a BDM full-time that's adding 200-300 doors a year organically, and it won't break your business. You can go eat other companies and acquire businesses, and it won't break your business because you have got a really solid people system, really solid planning system, and really solid process system. But they usually only focus on the process system, and that one cannot outweigh the others. And those are the 3 biggest profit levers that exist in a business because they all relate to the biggest expense, which is your team. And so a lot of people get focused on metrics, KPIs, profit coaching, and all this stuff, like trying to maximize. And what they really just need is they just need to get those 3 systems dialed in, and they'll make way more money in their own business, and they'll have way less stress. And so that's how I kind of sort them out.
That's wonderful. And what I really love about what you're saying there is so much of it is pointing back to people. And obviously I know the planning and the process, like you said, is important, but this is a people business. All businesses for the most part are people businesses. We have to focus on the right people in the right seat, focused on the right things at the right time, and getting laser focused on where you're headed, knowing where you're headed. All of those things matter, and they're all people driven. And when we take care of people and we have the right people, we get to win big, and we get to have fun doing it too.
Yeah, you should be maximizing fulfillment. You should be enjoying your day-to-day, especially if you have a whole team. If you don't enjoy your day-to-day and you have an entire team, you've built your business wrong. And we might need to replace your whole team. We've done that at DoorGrow. But there's light at the end of the tunnel. If you've got all the raw material, we can make this good for sure.
That's awesome. So, all right, Jason. So if the listeners want to learn more, they want to talk to you, they want to learn all about DoorGrow, what's the best way for them to reach out?
We are really easy to get a hold of. So I'm King Jason Hull, Hull, on every social platform that exists. Just send me a DM, message me, or just go to DoorGrow on every social platform, or just go to doorgrow.com.
Perfect. Well, we'll drop some links into the show notes so they're easy to find. Jason, thank you so much for your time. This was such a great conversation about where we're at in the industry and really how to continue to thrive and grow our businesses in really mature, sophisticated ways without losing our focus on people.
Awesome. I appreciate you having me on the show. Thank you.
Excellent. And thanks to our audience for listening. And until next time, keep going beyond rent.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of Beyond Rent. If you enjoyed this podcast, spread the word on social media and with your peers in the industry. To be notified when more episodes are released, subscribe using your favorite podcast player. Beyond Rent is brought to you by Rent Manager Property Management Software. Learn more about Rent Manager's industry-leading software solutions at rentmanager.com. Until next time, keep going beyond rent.